Welcome to the Agent Odyssey. My name is Matt Wyman. I am the co-founder and CEO of Acario. We help you simulate synthetic users with your agents so you can find issues before your users do in production. Today, I'm really excited to have Adrien Schmidt with us. Now, Adrien has a huge amount of experience across multiple decades in analytics and AI, and is currently building a company called Rozz. And I'm really excited to have Adrien here to talk to us about GEO and this next generation of how we inform agents about what's possible in the world and how you can have a better, more fruitful conversation. So Adrien, welcome. Maybe you can tell us a bit about what brought you to this moment in your journey.
Sure. Hi, Matt. Thanks a lot for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here at this pretty crazy moment in AI history. I mean, you might have seen Anthropic just filed for an IPO. I mean, this is
Yep.
like all the big changes are happening as we speak. Yeah, so I started, in chatbots way back in 2017 when they were just coming out. Of course, they're very different now, and what we're doing with Rozz, all right, is helping companies control the way that chatbots like Claude or ChatGPT, Perplexity, um, how they appear in conversations related to their domain in those chatbots. And we do that by helping them make their first party content more authoritative, right? So you can appear in citations, you can be referenced by all those chatbots, but this content that you're referred by uh, could come from a lot of different sources, right? A lot of people talk about Reddit, a lot of people talk about YouTube, or lists that could, list from your competitors that could cite your company. Well, we try to give you a little bit more control over how your company appears in those conversations. And so that's all part of a general GEO, Generative Engine Optimization, or AEO, Answer Engine Optimization practice that is developing right now.
It's an amazing world because it's a whole new set of avenues that everyone needs to learn about. And I love the fact that 2017 is ancient history now for chatbots. It's just time moves so quickly. Um, Maybe I think it would be helpful because I know I'm also ramping in this space. Maybe you can describe a little bit more about like how do the various public agents work in gathering this information. It's not quite as simple as just, well, the model's trained and then it gets used in the agent. There's all sorts of other sub processes that are run to answer questions. Can you describe a little bit of that ecosystem and how that system works?
Yeah, sure. So let me start by separating Google and its ecosystem from, Claude, let's say, and ChatGPT and Perplexity mostly. So because they behave quite differently, right? And throughout the conversation, what we're doing with Roz, we're focusing on the latter. Right. Google already has all of its search infrastructure, and they're definitely trying to leverage that for obvious reasons that include their tech stack, but also their business model. What we'll look at is how those new AI agents collect this information and use it to provide accurate answers to their users. Right. Um, in Let's say what we see are three types of agents coming to consume the content, your first party content. Right. The basic level is a training bot, right? So the training bot is what will be used to create the next generation of their models, right? So Opus 4.8 just came out. It already has training bots that are collecting data for Opus 4.9, right? Or I don't know what it's going to be called, right? And so those are agents that just consume everything. And those are the easiest ones and the ones that just come and just basically just get everything, put their hands on everything they can because they need as much data as you can. So in terms of citation and GEO interest, it's important to be part of the internal knowledge of the model, but this is not what will give you the most immediate leverage. The second stage of that these bots use are their own indexes, right? So when let's say a ChatGPT user uh, asks, types in a prompt and you see searching the web, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually sending out bots or agents to search the web. It could be just querying its own internal index, right? And you see those agents, they're called like OpenAI dash search bot, right? So you really see them as separate crawlers on, uh, in just on the web. And then the final level, which is the most valuable level, are actual citation bots, which are engaged during real-time user conversations. And those are generally, dash users. It could be Claude dash user, right? ChatGPT dash user. And those bots are triggered in real time to fetch up-to-date information during a user conversation. And if these bots collect authoritative information that they could really base their answer on, then your company is more likely to be accurately cited in that conversation. And that's where the real value comes from.
How much do we know about how those agents are built? The citation agents, are they looking to that local index first? Do they? I mean, how do they? What have they made public about how they work?
Yeah. So the interesting thing is there's not that much disclosure from the bot companies, from the major AI providers about how these work. Okay. So what, we've read their literature and, it's pretty basic. Your content has to be original. It has to be maybe, structured in such way. Um, so we've adopted an empirical way of trying to understand what works or not. Um, and that is translated into our product, right? So we basically build an AI version of your content, your website, your support site, your documentation into what we call an AI site, right? And this AI site measures everything that the bots consume. And through trial and error, um, we try to discover what draws these crawlers in, what generates the various stages. The first of all, what draws the training bots, and then the search bots, and then the citation bots, and we try to understand um, what works and what doesn't. So, let me give you a few examples of things that worked. Right? We found that clustering um, pages around semantic topics is something that works. So when ChatGPT or Claude comes in and queries a page with a citation bot, more often than not, it queries 4 or 3 or 4 or 5 pages around that topic, right? And as if it was doing what a human user does, which is as if it was validating that the content that you're providing is actually accurate, right? So it could be one page, but more often than not, it's actually a little cluster of pages. And so we found that organizing data around those topical clusters was important. We even found that they remember those topical clusters because when we changed them, because there were changes in the content, uh, the chatbots came in and were querying pages that no longer existed
Hmm.
around those topics, and we were like, "Uh-oh!" They were even querying the topic cluster pages, basically the pages where we list per topic all the pages and all the that are relevant to that topic. So we found that, for example, so topic organization was really important. What we found that didn't really work, and we were very surprised, is the LLMs.txt or LLMs full.txt. So we deploy them on our client websites, really to point crawlers into the right direction, into the direction of the AI site that we built for them. And, I mean, LLM's full.txt really contains almost, a huge database of content. It's a pretty heavy file
It
that is
is.
specifically formatted for LLMs. And honestly, I thought that this would be, heavily consumed by LLMs because it's really for them, right? Um, but we're not getting almost any traffic on it, right? So uh, what they say they do, what they say they support. I mean, LLMs.txt was supposed to be something that maybe was picking up, and Anthropic was supporting it in its documentation and all that. Um, well, so far, we haven't seen a lot of success with that. Um, Other example, right? Uh, Chatbots, LLMs love JSON, right? So we produce JSON, right? And we give them APIs, and the content could be on the AI side is also under JSON format. Well, turns out that the same content is also available on the AI site in form of HTML, and they go get the HTML. They really are not interested at all in the JSON, right? So those are not specifications that are available on any documentation. It's just something that we found out by trial and error. So
That's
here's a
amazing.
couple of examples.
That's amazing. It's like the IO, the inputs HTML, the outputs JSON. They like to produce one
Yeah,
and read the other.
exactly.
um, do we have any sort of evidence or studies on people's behavior around citations? So as they're talking to ChatGPT or Claude AI and they see the citations come up, is there any material indicating like click behavior and read behavior?
So we have on our end limited but not non-existent content on this. Since we have all these logs, right? What we've been able to start identifying uh, are and it's really hard to verify that in real time. But we have seen what we call ChatGPT user sessions.
Mm.
So the way we identify that ChatGPT uses a bunch of different, edges on the network to connect to your website, to your. So for us, it's always the AI site, right? And so if we can match uh, basically a URL, right, a ChatGPT URL with the same user agent, and then connecting on the same kind of topic um, in a certain time frame, it's pretty legitimate to think that it's actually a user session, right? It's the
Yeah,
same user, right?
yeah.
Going
Following a
from
thread of some sort.
completely, exactly, following a thread of some sort. So we've seen a user ask about a generic feature and then going to pricing and then going to implementation, right? Cloud versus on a desktop versus, you know, device images. So, so we've been able to see that on what we think is really a chat GPT interface. We've also seen it, and I think this is really, this is really interesting. We haven't been able to reproduce it in a at scale yet, but we've also seen it in Claude code. So we've seen um, Claude code, specifically so the Claude user agent actually indicates whether it's the Claude AI or Claude code, and we've seen Claude code query features, then query pricing, and then query some specific dedicated content that we have for those coding agents, which are runbooks, right? And
Interesting.
runbooks actually tell Claude how do you install, the CLI of that particular customer, right? And how to use it, right? So how to get started, how to get the API key, what format should you use to instantiate the service. And so those really, well, not necessarily simple, but those instructions dedicated to a Claude agent, obviously formatted. It's an HTML page, but it translates into Markdown. So it's all that is really meant to maximize and ease of ingestion by the coding tools, and let them go from the user asking in their coding app, I'm trying to solve this problem, to Claude being able to recommend a solution and actually like deploy it, right?
That's fascinating. We're running a similar, I would call it experiment, where we have an MCP to interact with Acario, to build simulations and whatnot. And we've created a path so you can onboard directly from the MCP. And one thing we've done on our marketing page, we have a marketing page dedicated to the MCP. So this is not in Docs. Of course, we have material in Docs, but on the marketing side, we made a page, and about half the content is specifically for humans, and about half the content would be interesting to humans, but actually it's there for the various co-pilots to discover, for the agents to discover, because it includes in it the couple lines necessary to include our MCP. So if you're using
Exactly.
Claude or Windsurf or something else, and I think the content looks interesting and fun, and a person who sees it certainly would never be unhappy about seeing that content and might even use it. But specifically, the mental model was, this is for the agents actually to pick up, so they have context. So if this is a match, they can use it. I mean, it's an experiment. We'll see how it works. Where we're trying to track that to figure it out. But this is very much a Wild West moment. And I wonder, from your perspective, if we step up for a moment, do you think this is a winner takes all type moment for these agents, where one of them will find the best route for tying together all this information in a similar fashion that sort of Google figured out the best way to index the internet and therefore create the best search? Or do you think it's too early to tell? How do you think about that?
Wow. Wow, that's like the $1 trillion question.
Yeah, and if you can just
uh,
predict it, now I'm just gonna.
yeah, right. Exactly. Should you? No, I mean all right. I'll take this on a personal level. And like you probably and a bunch of our listeners, for pretty heavy users of this thing, right? Um,
Mhm.
and so far today, I have pro subscriptions to ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, um, and I use them for different purposes. I think they all have. So all of my personal stuff as a consumer, I use on ChatGPT, right? I just find that I just like the tone. I like the way it searches. I like all the integrations it has with shopping and all that. All of my business stuff I do on Claude, right? I like the formatting. I like the coding. I just like the documentation. I like the front end design. There's a bunch of stuff that I like in there, and I'm not saying that the others don't know how to do it, but it's just that that's what I use it for. And then as a the deep search, and like even almost like recurring searches, right? Alerting. I use Perplexity. Because I just like the way it does research, right? I think that the research it does. So it seems to me like as if they each had their specialty, and for me to imagine that this would go under one nest today, I don't know, I mean, I don't feel like, the market is so big, that today it seems like the winning strategy that, for example, Anthropic decided to do on focusing on enterprise, it seems to be a pretty winning strategy to me, and I fail to see. I mean, I don't know. I don't really see how they're going to, um, extend, into all 3 areas and possibly many more areas, in the near future, right? It's already so huge. I mean, they're already investing so much in just doing what they do well. Um, but I may be completely wrong. But that's just my personal usage of those different uh, AI engines.
It feels, I'm having a similar experience where it's agent by purpose in use. And I look around me, people in my community, people I know, and if you're on the technical side, Claude is, sits in the front, in the forefront as your sort of experience. And then if you're outside sort of the technical domain, to your point, ChatGPT and the tone and the manner in which it interacts, many people enjoy. And I think each one of those is starting to find its sort of zone. But I'm curious if so the I would generally not say there's a positive side to a winner take all, but the couple things that happen when you get that moment is that you get standards. And it's very hard for folks to agree upon standards when they're each running in their own direction, trying to create a different experience. But this is an area where it feels like those of us who have companies and have content and want it to be found, we would certainly benefit from a standard. So I don't necessarily want a winner take all on the other side, but I do want the value of knowing, okay, but this is the way that we can help inform those agents and help guide them so they're not just inventing facts about our companies and inventing facts about our products that don't exist or aren't true. So, okay, so if we put aside the winner take all and therefore a path to standards, do you start to see another path showing up? Because the LLM, I agree that the LM dot text doesn't seem to be. I mean, I can't tell actually. I'll be really honest. I can't tell, but it didn't have a big pop of working. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe it is working. I just can't tell, or maybe they don't need it. Where do you see standards showing up?
Yeah. So, I mean, I really get your point, and it's a great point. So Google has recently released, as of like last week, I think, basically a guide for doing AEO on Google, right?
Hmm.
What to do, what not to do, and they're pretty much saying don't do exactly what we do, which is to say,
Don't game us.
market right, like market to agents in a different way that you market to humans, right? I mean, really, what we're doing, right? You have a website. We say your website is going to be read by humans, and and humans like pictures, and then like all they like videos that are kind of like high level marketing. But agents like dense information density and facts, and then they like to see where it comes from, and then they want to see linked content, and there's a whole bunch of markdown that you could add to that to give the agent detailed information about your content that humans are not interested in, right? So we really see marketing to humans and marketing to agents as two different things that require two different web presences. Okay. Now, your question comes down to, are there any standards that could answer that question, right? I mean, so Google's already answered and said, you know, stay with what you're doing for humans and what you've been doing in SEO. And basically, AEO is nothing more than SEO, right? It's the same thing. GEO, AEO, SEO, it's all the same. Um, I would predict, which means that like it's probably going to be wrong, but I would predict that the other LLMs will do the same thing and publish
Really?
guidelines as to like how to make your content um, the most, you know, I would say extractable for us, or usable for us, or pertinent for us, because I really think it's in their interest, right, to have companies or organizations or any kind of online publisher um, publish content and help their agents provide the best possible answer. And so I think it's in their interest to have some of that load go to the first party publishers.
Well, that part makes sense. I think I was surprised. Maybe it's a clarification. I feel as though Google's comment that they want to keep that the two should be separate. And by the way, I think it makes a world of sense that there actually is a difference between how an agent reads content and how a human reads content. You market differently to a human. You even explain things differently to a human. Repetitive, statements. You have to spell things out. They don't have as many reference points. Google, absolutely, it's in their best interest not to have this other ecosystems show up. They want to keep the internet looking as much like the internet today as possible. Human oriented, human links, human web pages. It keeps their search alive and everything else. So if this
Exactly.
other format shows up, this more agent oriented format shows up and really works and takes off, it's going to erode their search business even more quickly before they figure out how they're going to transition. So it makes perfect sense to me that Google would tell us, no, don't go build agent oriented content. But it seems like the reverse would be true. So maybe I misunderstood, but it feels to me like the reverse is true for everybody else. They should want us to go generate agent specific guideposts and signposts to say, here's how to interpret what our company does, our products, our services, our message. And in fact, diff or the delta between the marketing or the human oriented content and the agent oriented content, that itself, I would imagine, would be super interesting to the Perplexities and to the ChatGPTs and Claudes, because they can look at it and say, well, this is how I should articulate it to my user, but here's some of the additional information I can go pull on to generate more value when I'm having that conversation. So do you think that everyone's going to follow the Google path? Did I understand that correctly? Because I agree everyone's going to have guidelines, but do you think those guidelines are going to drive us to create this separation in content, or do you think they're going to drive us to try to keep it unified?
I mean, the whole premise of Rozz is that they will be different, right? So, and I might even go further in saying that I actually believe that at one point the web will be like 80% agentic, right? And maybe even completely agentic. So at some point, maybe we will just provide content on the web for agents, because at the end of the day, okay, I mean, what you really like to consume on the web is content that, I mean, you really like to see, like, it may be beautiful videos, films, entertainment, but things that you could use, right? Whether it's timetables to take the bus, or whether it's professional content that you want to use in your code, in your marketing, in your business, whether it's numbers for your annual report, whatever, right? I mean, as a user, it's not great. It's so much better to be intermediated by an agent, right? So I think that yes, there will be dedicated web content for agents, unlike what Google is saying, and that there will be guidelines published by the LLMs, the Perplexities and the Anthropics, and the OpenAIs, to just to say what works best, right? That's really what I think
Yeah, I think that makes a
is
world of
going to
sense.
happen.
It makes a world of sense. I mean, we don't, again, entertainment aside, and there are some unique cases, but in the majority of cases, the website is created, not the marketing content isn't created because someone just enjoys creating content. It's there for a purpose, and the purpose involves the business and moving the business forward. And if people are interacting via agents, then, I mean, honestly, those pages are just less necessary. What you really need to do is make sure the agent is aware of all that content and suggest it at the right time. But who knows, make it even be more efficient because they actually understand the problem at hand and can suggest the right
Yes.
solution that actually fits that problem best. So I think that's I mean, not to
Yeah.
be
And
overly
imagine, I mean,
optimistic, but I actually think that could be an amazing future.
yeah, amazing. And I mean, what we're seeing is, we're seeing now agents increasingly, I don't know if we're there yet, but at least in pilots, using dynamic UI, right? So this intermediation layer could completely tailor a whole new website on the fly for you at that present moment, right? With the right UI components, and it completely adapted to your personal preferences, needs. I mean, everything that really makes getting information efficient for you, right? So I mean, the source website is almost a one-to-many thing today, right? I mean, you publish a website. Some websites do A/B testing. Some of them have some customized options, but in general, it's a one-to-many experience. The whole premise of AI is a personalized experience. So as long as your AI agent has the right content from you, why not leave it to the agent to render it to you in the way that it knows that you want to consume,
And
right?
that's the key because it knows you. It has that context, whereas the marketing site does not. It doesn't know who you are. To your point, the one to many. Yeah,
Knows
that
you like
makes,
crazy. It knows so many things about you now, right? The whole memory feature that we have, right? I mean, that's what actually makes citation tracking difficult. When people say, "Oh, is this increasing my citation rate?" I'm like, well, is it increasing your citation rate? For who? Because we all have different memories in our agents. And so when we query the agent, sorry, when we prompt the agent, it takes all of that into account to create the answer. So it's even hard to know, uh, citation rates because it's not generic anymore. It's super personalized.
Yeah, absolutely. And the modality is personalized as well. I have a friend who does a lot of cycling, and he's commented numerous times that he'll have topics that he wants to explore, and he has he's using voice basically, and he's having conversations to go learn more about a particular topic and do research. And it's not arbitrary. And this is very specific. The type of thing that you would normally have assumed gets done while sitting down and looking at your laptop or desktop machine. And that's a modality he enjoys, and he can move back and forth. So this is the world that's coming. Uh, I'm curious, just extending that, as you're thinking about the skills that people need to work on and the skills that we need to adopt and the future, like getting outside of just this moment and really jumping forward in the future of AI in the world. What kind of skills do you think people need to really work on and embrace?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we were just touching on is key, right? So how much of our work, how much of our daily life is going to be intermediated by AI, right? Um, and if we assume that it's going to be a lot, I mean, like really a lot, um, then how do we leverage those personalization capacities to our biggest advantage? And today, I don't know how it's probably going to be simplified in the future, but today it's really about the skills, right? So the skills in terms, not just in terms of our personal skills, but building these markdown files, defining, your project context if you're using, Claude, or defining your context if every LLM has that. And what we've started to do at Rozz is to interact with each other on work using Git tracked markdown files, right? So I would give instructions on a certain project, right, um, with as a form of a markdown file, and I expect the results or the intermediate results, and code extracts, documentation about what was done, anything that they ran into, right, in terms of issues or solutions, to be documented in that markdown file. And that way, the work, whether it's a code review, whether it's an idea review, whether it's problem solving, um, is intermediated by the AI through that markdown file. And so that's just a way of using skills, right? As in skills like markdown files in many different ways, because those are what help us, you know, work with those intermediate AIs and have them personalize what they're helping you to do really to your specific problem at the specific moment you need it. And it could also be collaborative, right? I mean, this whole, I edit the file, it's in Git. My coworker, gets it, make their edits. I get it, and it's all tracked, and it's all super simple. So that's it's a very. I don't know if that your question was you were looking for something broader, but for me,
Great.
this is really something, using this kind of way of telling the agents what you specifically want, I think is really key because they're the intermediate layer between us and our work and us and what we try to achieve online.
I also love the fact that along that route, you would need clarity of what it is you're looking for. You have to be able to articulate what it is you need, what you're looking for. And then when you make it collaborative, you can pull a few people together and then you get some agreement about what the purpose was and what you're trying to achieve in that area. Whereas quite often when people are not using that type of method, they don't really know what they're trying to get done and they wind up wandering and they get something done, but did it really meet the original expectation? And it's hard to go back and figure out what was the original condition. So I wonder, as people do more of what you're describing, if we'll get more awareness of how our businesses operate, because essentially what you have there's a documented action and decision tree of these are the actions we wanted to take and the decisions we made and the approaches we took, and then you can see the outcome. So it's really interesting. Creates an interesting
I
opportunity to
mean,
learn.
100%. Exactly. That's the word that I was going to use. It's a real learning machine, right? Because this is something that stays, and I mean, you could easily extract the core of it into your project memory and build on it. So yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it does.
Awesome. Adrien, thank you so much for the conversation today. Very enlightening.
Matt, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.